and tonight we bring you special extended coverage of a rapidly escalating military crisis in the Middle East, a coordinated strike by the United States and Israel against Iran, and the dangerous chain reaction now unfolding across the region. This is not a minor exchange of fire. This is not a symbolic warning shot. This is a large-scale military operation that has already reshaped the geopolitical landscape, and it could determine the future of regional security for years to come. Over the next 20 minutes, we will break down what happened, why it happened, how Iran responded, and what this means for the United States, Israel, the Middle East, and the rest of the world. Segment 1. What happened? In the early hours of the morning, coordinated air and missile strikes targeted multiple strategic sites across Iran. Explosions were reported in Tehran and other major cities as Israeli fighter jets and long-range assets, supported by American military capabilities, carried out what officials described as preemptive precision strikes. The operation focused on key military installations, including missile storage facilities, air defense systems, radar networks, and command centers believed to be connected to Iran's advanced weapons programs. Within hours, plumes of smoke rose over parts of the Iranian capital. Social media videos showed flashes lighting up the night sky, followed by shockwaves echoing across urban neighborhoods. Both Washington and Jerusalem confirmed involvement. Officials described the action as necessary, citing intelligence assessments that Iran was accelerating military capabilities considered a direct threat to Israeli territory and American forces stationed in the region. Israeli leadership declared a national state of emergency. Schools closed. Civil defense systems were activated. Air raid sirens were placed on high alert. In Washington, the administration stated that the operation was defensive in nature and coordinated with regional allies to minimize civilian casualties. But the scale of the strike signals something much bigger than a limited warning. This was a calculated show of force, designed to degrade capability, not just send a message. Segment 2. Why now? To understand why this happened now, we need context. For years, tensions between Iran and Israel have simmered below the surface through proxy conflicts, cyber operations, intelligence clashes, and targeted assassinations. Iran has long supported armed groups across the region that oppose Israel. Israel, in turn, has repeatedly warned that it will not allow Iran to develop advanced weapons that could threaten its existence. Diplomatic efforts to revive nuclear negotiations have stalled multiple times. Sanctions, counter-sanctions, and covert operations have deepened mistrust on all sides. In recent weeks, intelligence assessments reportedly indicated an acceleration in weapons development and increased regional coordination among Iranian-aligned forces. Israeli officials argued that waiting would only increase the cost of confrontation. American leadership, while cautious, ultimately supported the move, stating that regional stability and deterrence required decisive action. But critics argue that this action risks triggering a broader war. And that concern is not theoretical. Because Iran did not remain silent. Iran's response. Within hours of the strikes, Iranian leadership addressed the nation. Officials condemned the attacks as acts of aggression and violations of sovereignty. They vowed retaliation. And retaliation came quickly. Missile launches were detected across multiple locations. Drone swarms were reported heading toward American military facilities and strategic assets in neighboring countries. Regional air defense systems were activated. Explosions were heard near bases used by U.S. forces in parts of the Gulf region. Some projectiles were intercepted mid-air. Others landed near military zones. Iran described the response as proportional and promised additional action if strikes continued. This marked a dangerous threshold. Because once both sides exchange direct fire, escalation becomes harder to control. Military analysts warn that even limited retaliatory cycles can spiral into prolonged regional conflict, especially when multiple allied and proxy forces are involved. Segment 4. The regional impact. The Middle East is a complex network of alliances, rivalries, and fragile stability. American forces are stationed in several countries across the region. Israel remains on high alert. Gulf states have strengthened defensive measures. Airspace restrictions were implemented. Commercial flights were rerouted. Oil shipping lanes through critical waterways experienced temporary disruptions. Energy markets reacted almost immediately. Oil prices surged amid fears of supply instability. Global stock markets showed volatility as investors assessed geopolitical risk. Meanwhile, civilians across the region are bracing for uncertainty. In Tehran, families rushed to grocery stores. Emergency services mobilized. Communications experienced temporary slowdowns in certain districts. In Israel, bomb shelters were opened nationwide. Reserve units were activated. And across the region, governments are urging calm while preparing for worst-case scenarios. The global reaction. The international community responded swiftly. European leaders called for immediate de-escalation and urged all sides to return to diplomatic channels. Russia condemned the strikes as destabilizing and warned of broader consequences. China expressed concern about regional stability and emphasized respect for sovereignty. The United Nations scheduled emergency discussions. Some countries voiced support for Israel's right to self-defense. Others criticized what they described as unilateral escalation. The world is watching, because any expansion of this conflict could impact global trade, energy markets, and international security. Segment 6. The domestic debate in America. Back home in the United States, political debate has intensified. Supporters of the operation argue that deterrence requires strength, and that preventing long-term threats justifies decisive action. Critics question whether congressional authorization was sufficient. Some lawmakers are demanding classified briefings. Others are urging caution to avoid prolonged entanglement. Public opinion remains divided. Historically, Americans support defensive action when national security is perceived to be at risk, but long conflicts often face growing scrutiny over time. The administration has emphasized that the objective is limited: degrade capability, restore deterrence, avoid occupation. But military history shows that limited operations can evolve rapidly, depending on enemy response. Segment 7. Military Analysis. Strategically, the operation appears designed to achieve 3 objectives. First, disrupt advanced weapons infrastructure. Second, reassert deterrence. Third, signal willingness to act. The strikes targeted command nodes and air defenses, suggesting careful planning and intelligence preparation. However, Iran retains significant missile and drone capability. It also has influence through regional networks that could widen the theater of confrontation. The key question now is containment. Will both sides limit further escalation? Or will additional strikes expand targets and duration? Military planners must balance pressure with restraint. Because once momentum builds, reversing course becomes more difficult. Segment 8. What happens next? Several possible scenarios now emerge. Scenario 1. Limited exchange, followed by back-channel diplomacy. Scenario 2. Sustained regional confrontation involving additional actors. Scenario 3. Rapid escalation into broader multi-front conflict. At this stage, signals from both sides suggest determination, but also awareness of consequences. Behind the scenes, diplomatic channels may already be active. History shows that even during open hostilities, quiet negotiations often continue. The coming days will determine whether this becomes a brief, intense confrontation or the beginning of a prolonged crisis. Segment 9. Human Impact. Beyond strategy and politics, the human dimension cannot be ignored. Civilians live under uncertainty. Families fear further strikes. Parents worry about safety. Military personnel stand on heightened alert, separated from loved ones. War, even limited, reshapes lives in ways statistics cannot fully measure. And as leaders calculate risk and response, ordinary people wait for stability. Segment 10. Closing Perspective. Tonight, we are witnessing a pivotal moment. A direct military exchange between the United States, Israel, and Iran carries weight far beyond immediate tactical objectives. It influences global power dynamics. It tests alliances. It shapes deterrence. And it forces the world to confront difficult questions about security, sovereignty, and stability in an increasingly interconnected age. For now, the situation remains fluid. Officials continue to assess damage. Military forces remain on alert. Diplomatic channels remain uncertain. And the world waits. We will continue to provide verified updates as new information becomes available. I'm ____________. And this has been your in-depth special coverage of a developing global crisis. Stay with us. Good night.